This weekend on the Rochester Press Box from Salvatore's Pizzeria at the historic Garage Door Restaurant.
I'm Dan Fetes, and can somebody tell the Miami Marlins that spring training means nothing?
Hi, I'm John DiTullio. I'll tell you why it's great to be an NFL owner and general manager.
Hi, I'm Toby Motyka, and I'll tell you why somebody shouldn't worry about a seeding for Syracuse in the NCAA tournament.
And I'm Bill Pucko with the story of the best free agent signing by the Buffalo Bills ever. Join us on the Rochester Press Box this weekend. The Rochester Press Box is brought to you by Salvatore's at the Garage Door, Rochester's choice winner for Best Pizzeria, featuring Wacky Wing Wednesday and the Super Slice. It's as big as your head. The games are always on at the Garage Door, home to the Rochester Press Box. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us here in the Rochester Press Box at Salvatore's Pizzeria at the historic Garage Door Restaurant. Bill Pucko with you, along with John DiTullio, WHAM-TV.
Billy, good to be here.
All righty, Toby Motyka, 13 WHAM News and Fox Rochester. Dan Fetes from the high school sports beat. Danny, thanks for coming back. NFL free agency, it's the big topic now, and it's going to be for a few weeks. Overall, you know, the first wave is hit. What do you think about it?
It's exciting. It's kind of like gym class recess. You know, you're kind of seeing who doesn't get picked, who's the hot kid on the market, and it's exciting to see. And you know, it's weird to see guys like Revis is going to be gone, Darrelle Revis will be gone, Julius Peppers gets cut, DeMarcus Ware goes, Talib goes to a surprise of the Broncos, who's bulking up on their defense to go with that potent offense. Yep. It's exciting, and you know, it's kind of the draft part one or one sub A. You know, you're kind of seeing, you know, where pieces are falling right now, and that'll lead you into the draft and what you need to do.
What's really going on here, though? You know, that's what I always ask. All these players change teams. It's like somebody else's garbage is the next guy's prize. You're moving guys around. What's really being accomplished?
I think teams are now looking for short-term solutions in free agency. You look at age, yeah, sure, some guys who are 25 will get big contracts. Some guys who are 30 will get big deals. And teams are like, look, we just want you for a couple of years, plug some holes, and then maybe we'll just send you packing. Yeah. I feel like that's what ends up happening. And the amount of money teams are spending on some of these players now just blows my mind, the millions that are flying around.
I like when I see veteran teams that are close, like the Broncos, what they did. Love what they did. Teams that are close, I can understand them shelling out the money. Mm-hmm. I love with the Broncos. The Browns, on the other hand, they gave Dansby a lot of money, a 32-year-old linebacker. Right. They did bring in Whitner for a certain amount of money. How close are the Browns? But you look at what the Broncos did, what the Falcons are doing. I think the Falcons are closer than what they showed last year. But you're seeing teams that are going to be frugal. For once, the Cowboys are being applauded for being frugal, for cutting DeMarcus Ware. And then you see New England showing the door to Aqib Talib and Julian Edelman, which is a head-scratching move for the Patriots. But I think the winner is certainly Denver. And you look at what the Saints did. The Saints, many people are saying, overpaid for Jarvis Byrd. But I think safeties, along with quarterbacks, are number one. But the way the game has evolved, those spread offenses, I think safeties are at a high premium now.
Yeah, it's so funny. But why is Jarvis Byrd worth that much to New Orleans and he wasn't worth it to Buffalo?
It all depends on the situation, and it depends on, obviously, how much you're willing to spend on any certain positions. Yeah. The Bills just maybe didn't view him as being that integral a part of their defense. They weren't going to be able to pay him and Aaron Williams. They might have looked at Williams as more of an affordable building block for the future. And another team like New Orleans that, as John said, they're a team that could be perceived as close. He might be one of those missing pieces they feel like they didn't have.
But they put themselves in the same bind, don't they? They signed Bird. Yeah. It has to come off someone.
It came at a cost. They cut Jabari Greer. They cut Will Smith. Yeah. They cut Jonathan Vilma. And they still got to pay Jimmy Graham, who they franchised. They still got to pay him. But they cut a lot of players that get under the cap. so they can go out and get a player like Burke.
And go back to Denver now. They bring in Talib, which is nice enough, but they lose Decker. Are they any better off?
I think they are. I don't think losing Decker, as long as they got Peyton Manning and they got Julius Thomas and they got Demaryius Thomas and they got Wes Walker, they're not going to miss Eric Decker. And they got rid of Champ Bailey at $10 million, and they bring in a better corner who's younger and better in Aqib Talib.
And now they got DeMarcus Ware supposedly coming to visit Denver. Where are they getting all this money? And like I said, John Elway's doing a great job of moving money around to stay under that cap.
And TJ Ward from the Browns coming over to Denver, I think, is one of the most underrated moves of the so far.
That's still to me, it points out how important the draft is you have guys, middle round guys especially, that are pushing the high salaries out so that you can afford to fill the holes in other places. And to me, it's just like the spring line, It doesn't matter whether you necessarily got better. Don't get worse. Show off your new talent. Tell your fans you're doing something, and they're all happy about the next preseason. It's March Madness. We'll get into Syracuse basketball again, coming up next. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box here from Salvatore's Pizzeria at the historic Garage Door Restaurant. And just down the road, Arthur Treacher's is open. Part of the family of businesses here at Salvatore's in the Garage Door. So we welcome them and can't wait to drop by there. Somebody said that it's just in time for Lent, which is a good marketing. Syracuse basketball, March Madness, it is upon us. Syracuse into the ACC tournament, and then from then it'll be seeded into the NCAAs. Toby, what do they have to do to maximize their presence?
Number one, stay healthy. They're so thin all over the place. If they're not healthy, they don't have a shot. And number two, they got to get Trevor Cooney going. This was the guy who, to me, made the big difference and has been MIA for a month and a half. If he
what
doesn't
if the
get
Notre
going,
Dame game was the aberration?
But he played well the first half of the season, too. The difference is guys really started getting up on him. He has two things to his game. Jim Boeheim actually said after that unbelievable loss to Georgia Tech, Trevor Cooney either pulls up off a pick and shoots a three, or he does a take to the basket. He doesn't have any kind of in-between. He's not going to, do a crossover and pull up for a mid-range two. Guys are starting to learn how to defend him. Syracuse has to work just to get him an open look, and he's not hitting them. That's going to be a problem unless he starts knocking those down.
He can be effective in transition. You saw when they get in transition, and to his credit, he hit 2 big threes against Florida State. Having Grant back is huge. I guess he's more of an impact than I think we give him credit for.
Injury is the best thing happened in his career now because we didn't appreciate him before he wasn't there.
And Ennis and Fair, and now you get Grant back, and Toby's right. If Cooney can get it, if he can find his stroke in Greensboro, it would be huge for Jim Boeheim.
Part of the issue for that is they don't have anyone else that can do that.
Yeah, that's
nobody.
the real problem.
CJ Fair can maybe hit a 3 or 2 a game. Tyler Ennis, that's not his game. If Cooney's not hitting threes, you got nothing.
Yeah, like I said, you're right. The injury to Grant, he looked very good in that Florida State win. The team looked like the team that we saw and we're riding high on. With that Trevor Cooney, obviously I've been very upset at him. And you just want, you've seen the talent in small sample sizes, so you want more of it. And he just seems like one of the guys that you just kind of got to pat him on the back. You got to build up his confidence. Everybody's talking about how great of a shooter he is in high school, top recruit. He can shoot the 3 ball, just has zero confidence right now.
Where's the in-between with him? I feel like he's either 0 for 12 or 8 for 9. I don't see any 3 for 8s coming from Trevor Cooney.
Find it. We saw James Sutherland kind of refine his stroke in the Big East tournament last year. But the same's got to happen because if Toby's right, if he doesn't have the stroke, they're not getting beyond. They'll get out of Buffalo, but I don't think they're going to advance beyond that.
I think we all believe that they'll go to Buffalo because, let's see, they're 11th in the polls right now, which slots to a 3 spot. The top 4 kind of get priority for the first round. The goal really is to somehow get to Madison Square Garden. What do they need to do to get there in the second round?
They have to win it. In my opinion, you got to win the ACC tournament because if you do that, then the body of work can start speaking for itself again because they do have all those wins. They got the 27 wins at this point in the season, I believe. So, but you still think about that, but they've lost 4 out of 6 games. If they can win the ACC tournament, they'll probably have to beat Duke and or North Carolina or Virginia. Then you can start ignoring that other bit and be like, that was the aberration. The real team is the one that started 25.
And you can start saying they didn't have Grant, they weren't healthy, they were missing Keita. You can kind of start to overlook those 4 losses of they just were cold for a little bit.
I think they get 2 wins. And those are going to be tough wins because they may get NC State, depending on who they're playing. Yeah. So they would be 29-5 if they lost in the ACC finals. To me, that's good enough to be a 3 seed in the East region, which would put them at the Garden.
I worry about the committee hammering them because traditionally, not playing well late in the season, they weight those games heavier.
Yes.
They may not be as good a shape as we think.
I worry about the home losses. I don't know if they're going to get rewarded with
To
4
bad
home
teams.
games when you couldn't defend your home court against 2 bad teams.
All right, like it or not, when we return. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, Salvatore's Pizzeria, Garage Door Restaurant, Wacky Wings Wednesday. Great specials here, great sports bar, live music every Friday. Like it or not, Barry Bonds returns to the San Francisco Giants.
Listen, he's been getting crushed for it. Listen, he's been a jerk his entire career. I think it's actually good. I don't have a problem with him coming back. Mark McGwire came back, and I think he didn't get as destroyed as much as Barry Bonds. Listen, the Giants, it's one place where you can go and kind of a safe haven, so to speak. But he is arguably the greatest player I ever saw in my time. So to have him back in baseball and back with the Giants, I don't got an issue with it. Really, baseball and professional sports, this is breaking news. They're littered with a lot of jerks.
Right.
Okay, they're littered with all kinds of jerks. He just happens to be maybe the king jerk. I don't really care. It doesn't affect me if Barry Bonds wants to come back and teach Buster Posey and some of those other great players on the Giants how to hit. If Bruce Bochy wants him there, then everybody else should just shut their pie hole, as far as I'm concerned.
Right on. He said it right there. If the San Francisco Giants want him back, what's the problem? There are a lot of people who we may not like outside of baseball, but we tend to idolize them because of what they can do on the field. Barry Bonds won't be the first roided up guy who people don't like to come back to the game, and he's not going to be the last.
But he was king jerk.
Doesn't matter.
Come on, Jeff. Can't we dislike the king
He
jerk?
was a king
dislike him.
jerk in Pittsburgh when he weighed about $180. I mean, he's been a jerk for almost 30 years. He can go back to Arizona State, jerk. He just has jerk qualities.
But
His dad was a jerk.
Yeah.
But he represents just an he's the guy that represents a really awful time in baseball history.
Absolutely. But on the Giants side, they struggled offensively last year.
Yes.
And Barry Bonds is a jerk, but he knows how to hit a baseball. And there's no question of that.
Yeah.
Polarizing. Toby, like it or not, replacing Jarvis Bird.
I like it. I didn't want the Bills to tie up that money into that contract. It's not going to be easy. Jarvis Bird's a really good player, but here's some things about Jarvis Bird is they offered him what sounded like a pretty good deal to make him one of the highest paid safeties in the league, especially over the front portion of that contract. What the Saints gave him, he's going to be 33 at the end of it. Let's not kid ourselves. They're not holding on to him all 6 years of that contract.
Well, what did Revis last 1 year?
Right. And that's what happens with these guys. Jarvis Bird gets hurt if that plantar fasciitis flares up again. Then suddenly you're going, oh man, that's a lot of money tied up in a guy like that. I think Buffalo needs to keep this young nucleus together. They needed that money to get Williams, to sign Marcel Darius. He's coming up in a little bit. And if E.J. Manuel ends up the guy in 2 years, you're going to be trying to work on him. So I think they needed to keep that money available, find a replacement safety, and make sure the rest of the team stays
I wish they
intact.
would have got this deal done a year ago before he was up, before the Goldston deal broke with Tampa. And that's the foresight that the Bills have shown on some players, but not in Birds. 2 years ago, this deal could have been done for a lot less money.
Do they have a guy who can play?
Denoris Searcy's better than advertised. He's a little more of an in-the-box type safety.
Yeah.
They like Duke Williams, though he didn't play that much last year. I think they like his future. And there's, a whole lot of rounds of an NFL draft coming up where they can get someone that they think might be able to
I
slide
just
in.
hate when the Bills, who are in need of good players, let good players go for whatever reason.
Right, they're homegrown guys. They
Yeah,
drafted
it
him.
bothers
They coached him up. He played well, improved it, and then they let him go get paychecks from somebody else.
I'll like this less if they don't use that money to lock in some of the other young guys. They already did it with Williams. Let me see Darius. If C.J. Spiller is a bounce-back year, go get him back. I'll like it more if they do that. I'll like it less if they let those guys walk too.
It's harder for us as fans, I think, to see the big picture with things like that, where we see you lose Bird and everyone's like, oh, they're never going to be good. But there are other things to consider.
He's a little overrated. I like him, but he's a little overrated as a safety.
Danny, like it or not, the lineup, the Boston Red Sox had a minor league lineup to play the Florida Marlins, the Miami Marlins, in a preseason game down in Florida.
I hate it. I hate everything about it. If there has been a more dysfunctional baseball organization over the last 10 years, I can't think of one. Yes, they've won their 2 World Series, but they're a joke. From the Carnival ballpark that they built to Ozzie Guillen in his Castro comments, to then gutting the team that they brought in for 1 year to try and make a push, to now saying that they're upset because they sold tickets at a higher price so that the World Series champion, they're trying to milk other teams' success for their profitability. It makes me sick. It's spring training baseball, and just like the Red Sox said, worry about your regular season lineup because that's an embarrassment.
I mean, the Spurs rest players during the regular season.
Right.
What, the Red Sox can't rest guys for a spring training game?
Spring
Please
training
stop.
means nothing.
John Henry's my new hero. Are they snooty? Yes. Right? Are they elitist? Are they elite? Absolutely. I love the fact that John Henry slams one of the most dysfunctional organizations in baseball, the Miami Marlins.
But don't we stand up for the fans? They charge them about $10 a ticket extra to see the Red Sox come down and play, and the Sox on a team that I didn't even know.
But teams
You know?
do that all the time. Nobody wants to go on buses in spring training. A lot of the veterans don't want to go on those trips. They send those minor leaguers. That's what spring training's for.
It wasn't even their good minor leaguers.
By the way, who are the morons paying that kind of money to go see a spring training game? Let me meet that person. How old are they, by the way? They're not young kids going to those games, are they?
No, I guess not.
That doesn't make any sense.
There are rules. They have rules in place. I
That's
mean,
like
Major
going
League
to a-
Baseball says it's supposed to send 3.
So I should be mad at the Bills when they only play their starters 2 possessions and I paid top dollar to go to a preseason game?
Yeah, but you know that's going to happen.
Well, you figure this is going to have spring training.
All right.
John Henry. God, I love that man. I love John Henry.
It's the Grapefruit League. It's not the National League.
We
it's
are
the
the
Grapefruit
Red
League.
Sox, and we are World Series champions, and they do business the right way.
That we can do what we want when we want. Unfinished business when we return. Back in the Rochester Press Box here from Salvatore's Pizzeria at the Garage Door Restaurant, East Ridge Road in Irondequoit. Unfinished business. Johnny.
All right, Billy, thanks. Here's why the NFL and their teams can succeed as opposed to the NBA and Major League Baseball. You've been seeing this whole week that players like Jarvis Bird signs with the Saints, but look at the guaranteed money, the $27, $28 million. Don't look at the $54 million that Bird is never going to see. An NFL GM and an owner can just say, hey, thanks for your service, but we got to cut you loose, and everyone will stand up and applaud. Too bad the Knicks can't do that with their contracts. Too bad Major League Baseball teams can't do that. They are locked in. The NBA, you got to find another partner to trade a guy for equal amount of money. Major League Baseball, forget about it. The union would never go for it. But here's the NFL. They are a monster. And it doesn't matter who you are. Champ Bailey, DeMarcus Ware, Julius Peppers. They will cut you, and they'll be playing the song from Janet Jackson on your way out. What have you done for me lately? It does not. That's why the NFL is successful, and that's why teams like the Browns, the Bills, whoever it may be, can just cut a guy loose and not have a conscience about it.
The effective management in the NFL is to work without a conscience.
Right? That's basically, they can be shrewd. They can cut no matter who you are. It does not matter.
All right, Danny.
MLB spring training means nothing. Everybody get that through your head. These are the Grapefruit League and the Cactus League. This isn't the National League versus the American League. And I'm sick and tired of teams getting all worked up and fans getting all worked up about their records. Why do they keep records in these Grapefruit Leagues? It makes no sense. Stats are the same way. If Mark Teixeira has a bad spring training, or guys like Mike Trout were to have a poor spring training, it would mean nothing. When it comes down to it, the best guys are going to play, and they're going to play very well. I'm sick of seeing these guys like Dan Uggla or whoever have monster spring trainings, hitting moonshot home runs in the 6th and 7th innings because some guy from AA baseball put one on the tee that even he couldn't swing through. This means nothing, and when it comes down to it, when April starts, we'll be seeing real baseball, and that's all that's going to matter.
You got these split squad
Yeah,
ties.
gosh.
Those are always
If
good.
your numbers add up to more than 10, you don't matter.
I know. I'm pretty concerned about Clayton Kershaw. He's had a couple of bad outings.
Stop.
Big
Toby.
contract.
Folks were concerned about Syracuse basketball, though, and probably still are. Yes, they beat Florida State, who very well may not be a tournament team, but let's look at the grand scheme of things here. This team has been awfully good for the vast majority of this season, but folks are still getting a little tied into, can they still be a 1 seed? Are they going to drop down to a 3 seed or a 4 seed? I'm here to tell you, don't worry about it. What has happened when Syracuse has made some of its best runs? They weren't a 1 seed. They didn't have those home games throughout the NCAA tournament. It looks like, barring disaster in the ACC tournament, Cuse will at least get a 3, get to play in Buffalo, and maybe even still get to go to Madison Square Garden. But at the end of the day, this team's hopes, this team's goals are a national championship. That's what you start thinking about when you're 25-0. That's going to be on a neutral site anyways. Don't worry about the seedings. If this team's going to do anything at all, they're going to have to play on the road eventually anyways.
You know where I'm concerned, and one thing that we didn't discuss before is there any chance that the NCAA committee is going to hold what they did in the Carmelo year against them, having seeded them in the East twice, and says, we owe it to the rest of these teams to make it difficult on Syracuse?
I don't think so. I think they're going to think of this team individually as its own entity. If they penalize them, it'll be for losing those 2 home games at the end of the regular season, not for anything that happened 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, I think we all hope you're right. Look, it was a different world in professional football back in 1962. The Buffalo Bills were in their 3rd year as an American Football League franchise, and Plan A in 1962 was the guy they drafted, Ernie Davis out of Syracuse. Well, they lost Ernie Davis to the Cleveland Browns, and then the Cleveland Browns lost Ernie Davis to death. He died of leukemia at a very young age, legendary Syracuse running back. So it was time to go to Plan B. And the Buffalo Bills signed a guy no one had heard of out of the Canadian Football League's name was Cookie Gilchrist. All Cookie Gilchrist did that first year, 1962, for the Bills was lead the league in rushing and win the league's most valuable player award. In the 2nd year, he led the AFL in scoring. In fact, he did that the 3 years he played for Buffalo. In the 3rd season, he led the league in rushing again and led the Buffalo Bills to the 1964 American League Championship. That was the first of only 2 titles that the Buffalo Bills have won. Cookie Gilchrist died in 2011, relatively young age of 75, but his legacy is secure as still the best free agent that the Buffalo Bills have ever signed. We record the Rochester Press Box here from Salvatore's Pizzeria at the garage door every Wednesday at 12:30. We invite you to come down, meet the guys, sign some autographs, have some lunch with us. Appreciate it, guys. John, good as always. Toby,
Absolutely.
Danny, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.